Are we good? There we go. All right, it's 1:30. I'd like to call the December 20th, 2021 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission to order. We'll go ahead and do roll call. Commissioner Varnell.
Here.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Here.
Commissioner Russell. Here. Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner George.
Here.
And Commissioner Cornett.
Here.
I'd like to go to item 2, approval of the minutes of the November 15, 2021 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission. Do we have a motion on this item?
Varnell move to approve.
Varnell to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hale. Do we have any talk about item 2, the meeting minutes? Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Varnell, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Can we votes, please?
Russell is a yes. Russell is a yes. I've logged myself out.
Okay, the item has passed with all in favor. Okay, item 3, report on licensed taxi and record services. There's nothing to report right now, correct, sir? Correct. Okay, very good. Item 4, there's no items in the consent docket, so we'll move on. We'll go on now to item 5A, Stuart Chai, City Traffic and Engineering. I defer to what's up on the screen for what this one's about, and we'll let Mr. Chai explain what it's talking about.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Chair. The intent of this draft ordinance is to modernize and simplify licensing and administration and oversight of the city's motor vehicle for hire and carriage licensing process. There are a number of changes proposed. Just very briefly, I'll just kind of run through your summary. Chapter 56, sections 20 through 48 basically transfer all of the duties to the Oklahoma City Police Department from the Oklahoma City Traffic and Transportation Commission with respect to reviewing vehicle for hire applications and certificates of public convenience and necessity. 5661 deletes the requirements for taxi services to include the supervisor of licenses when notifying them of a change of their business. 5668 converts the process of addressing taxi violations from a public hearing before the commission to an administrative function of the Oklahoma City Police Department. In sections 56-199 through 217, these sections transfer all the duties to the police department from the Traffic Commission with respect to carriage, operation, compliance, licensing requirements, and corrective actions. The proposed amendment to 5625 repeals the public hearing process required when considering certificates of public convenience and necessity. And then lastly, the proposed amendments to Chapter 60 in 56.1 and 56.2, they remove the administrative fees associated with public hearings and inspections of advertising on vehicles for hire, respectively. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on this draft ordinance.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have anybody else wanting to speak on item 5A? Okay, we already had staff input, so can I have a motion concerning item 5A, please?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Cornett. Do we have a second?
Second from Varnell.
Second, Varnell. Okay, do we have any talk on this item?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir.
I agree this needs to be done. The only concern I have is about 2 years ago, we had it may have been longer, had a cab company to misrepresent to the officer whether they had liability insurance for their operation. And due to his investigation, they found out that, in fact, he had turned in a forged copy. Personally, I just want to make sure that that's followed through with, to where when somebody does document that they do have insurance coverage, that the officers will follow through and verify, not just off of a piece of paper, but verify through the agent that that is, in fact, in force.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Leroy Dancia, Permits and ID over Vehicles for Hire. That will be part of the process. As part of licensing, as us taking over for you, Supervisor of Licensing and Development Services, that is part of the package, is to verify their insurance and what's all included in those insurance packages as well. We did that as part of our inspections, and that's one of the reasons why we caught that, along with any complaints that may arise from that. So if a company does apply or renews, that is one of the checklists that goes to find out, do they have insurance and what type of insurance that they have as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else want to talk about 5A? All right, thank you very much, sir. Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5A from Commissioner Cornett, seconded by Commissioner Varnell. Can we have your votes, please? Which one, ma'am? There it is. Okay, the item has passed with all 9 in favor. We go on now to item 5B. Ed Morissette III, to consider no vehicles in excess of 2-axis restriction on North Virginia Avenue between Northwest 36th Street and Northwest 39th Street. Do we have anybody here to speak on this item? Okay, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. Mr. Morrison submitted a no vehicle in excess of 2-axle restriction. Action on this item will be at the discretion of the commission. The intent of the item is essentially to discourage use of Virginia Avenue to run between 36th Street and Northwest 39th Street, to discourage its use by large trucks. Essentially, this is more of an item that is designed to keep large vehicles out of a neighborhood. It does not prevent their passage through a neighborhood if they've got business in the area. However, it's one of the things that's available for citizens to request if they're trying to curtail that type of traffic in their neighborhood. So action will be at the discretion of the commission. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Move for approval.
We have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Russell. Do we have any talk about it up here? Yes, sir.
I'm in full support of it, but my concern is that we might be looking at this same situation on Kentucky if these drivers decide to go a different route. And maybe we could possibly be looking at another application for that down the road.
There is always that possibility, but if you look at the current multi-axle vehicle experience on this road, I mean, it's running right around 2%, and that's really not a number that's out of the ordinary for residential areas when you consider the number of multi-axle service vehicles that would run through. I mean, city trash trucks, any number of other type, lawn services and that sort of thing. It's at this point in time, it's probably unlikely you'll see any changes to traffic patterns. I mean, you can always entertain another request if we have them come in, but the commission will get these on occasion, but they're rather rare.
There we go. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5B? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Russell. Can I have your votes, please? Item 5B has passed with all 9 in favor. Okay, we go on now to item 5C, Paula Morrow, to consider a traffic signal at the intersection of North Broadway Avenue and Northwest 16th Street. Ma'am? If I could have your name, address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Okay. I'm vaccinated. I'm going to take off my mask. Paula Morrow, 708 Northwest 18th Street, Oklahoma City, 73103. Thank you for having me. I have spent a lot of time and effort thinking about this intersection. And not only this intersection, but the whole area there. So you may not have seen it, but I put a comprehensive plan together to improve the foot and bicycle access across this intersection. Because what I like to call this intersection is where east meets west. And it's kind of a divided area. It's hard to access from East Heritage Hills across to the other neighborhood, which is near the Capitol. And there is a lot of traffic north-south on Broadway there. And so you only have a traffic light at Northwest 13th Street and Broadway, and then at Northwest 23rd Street. So people do access this area. There's also a bicycle path there. And I have walked across this intersection myself. It is 4 lanes, which makes it difficult to cross there. And it's a wide space. Plus, there is a small hill. In the report that Mr. Kai, am I saying that correctly? Chai, sent, it has here, there are no permanent view obstructions. And that is incorrect because there is a small hill on the, you can see it right there. And it doesn't look very much, but when you're a pedestrian trying to cross east-west or west-east, the cars come up over that hill and it's hard to get across that intersection. How much time do I have? Let's see now. Okay, I believe if it was more accessible with some kind of device, maybe not a traffic light, but something so that pedestrians and bicycles could cross easily there, I believe you're going to have more people cross there. I mean, if we truly want pedestrians and bicycles to move through our city, something needs improved there. And maybe a traffic light, but maybe something else. I'm not sure. But if you haven't seen my comprehensive report that I sent in, because I think parts of it, Mary told me, were sent to different divisions, I requested a sidewalk, because the sidewalk stops before you get to the railroad crossing, making it hard to go when you're trying to walk. And I've seen families cross there, and it is just not pedestrian friendly, and it needs to be. So anyway, that's my idea, and I don't think I'm the only one who has this problem. I don't know how to enlist people to have come to this meeting with me, because I don't know them, but I have seen families cross there, and I just think it should be safer for bicyclists and pedestrians.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5C? Okay, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. You'll notice that when we were out there, we did conduct a speed study. The existing speed limit posted on this section of Broadway is currently 35 miles an hour. The 85th percentile speed is running around 41 miles per hour. We also did a pedestrian and a bicycle study at the beginning of this month. And over the course of 4 hours of observation, we observed 10 pedestrians. As it stands right now, the intersection does not meet any of the MUTCD warrants for considering signalization. Reason being is because traffic entering volumes on Broadway Avenue are running just under 14,000 vehicles per day, and the entering volumes on Northwest 16th Street are running around just over 600 per day. It is a little bit of an unusual intersection in as much as 16th Street is a two-way street to the east side of Broadway, but it's a one-way westbound street on the west side. So the only traffic entering from 16th Street. The only vehicular traffic entering from 16th Street are on the east approach. On the west approach, it's a one-way road away from the intersection. Let's see. So if you've got any questions regarding this particular application, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I did note that in the recommendations section of your staff report, that ordinarily, a lot of times, if the commission is going to consider a signal, we would ordinarily recommend the inclusion of like a turn lane to accommodate left turns. But in this particular location, there's really not the availability to do something like that. There are some on-street parking areas to the north of 16th Street on Broadway, and any roadway widening would essentially render those unusable. So, like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on the application.
Yes, ma'am. You have something else you'd like to say?
I'm not sure I agree with particular thing. That Northwest 16th Street is both ways, east-west, on both sides. In fact, that is the only way you can get into Heritage Hills east. 16th Street is both, it is not one way on that west side. It is both, it's the only way you can get in. So like if you're coming from, let's say Byron's Liquor or Habitat for Humanity, and you want to make a right-hand turn into the neighborhood, right there at that intersection, that is the only way. It looks like a one-way, but it's actually two ways there. That is the only access.
Yeah, yes. Okay, let's see, on page 19 of this particular report, on the illustrations, well, it's difficult to zoom in on it, but there is a one-way sign that's marked, that is installed over top of the Northwest 16th Street street marker that shows that on the west side of Broadway, Northwest 16th Street is just a one-way street westbound.
It's not, it's both ways. I just drove past there this morning. Even though there's a one-way sign, you can make a right-hand turn there, or you can come out.
It's set up for one-way traffic because if you were eastbound on 16th Street approaching it, you'll notice that there are no stop signs or any sort of traffic control devices, and it's because it's a one-way street.
You're talking about, okay, right at this bottom picture, and you're crossing Broadway, and you're going westbound on 16th Street, you can go straight across Broadway.
He's saying you can't go
Yes.
east across
Correct,
Broadway on 16th Street.
Say that again?
He's saying you can't go east on 16th Street across Broadway.
Can't go east.
So if you're in Heritage Hills, you can't exit onto Broadway using 16th Street.
I've seen people come out of there.
Well, then maybe we need to make sure one street over, or wherever the one-ways are, they're all marked.
It probably is not important, but
No, that's a good point, and if it's not happening, we need to make sure it's happening, and it's for the right reason. If it should be a one-way, then it needs to make sure everybody knows it is, because it would be, if somebody is in that neighborhood heading towards Broadway, going eastbound, that's going the wrong way. And we just need to make sure going into the neighborhood is marked properly. That's all I would recommend, if we could send somebody out there and look.
Well, it does have one-way signs. I mean, the only other thing we could potentially do is add some do not enter signs to augment that, but we do have the one-way sign up.
Well, there, but
Oh, at the other end, the intersection's heavily structured, so you can't really get into it.
so if you're west of Broadway on 16th,
Correct. I understand.
there's indicators, don't go east.
Right.
There is. Okay.
Could it be that they're just violating it and coming out of there and turning right or left? That's probably what's happening, but it's a one-way street.
Yeah, but
to
as
the
long as
west.
it's marked appropriately.
Yeah, so somebody's just violating the
Right.
traffic control there.
So if you could just make sure it is marked properly. Okay. Okay.
Is there a school near? That would be Robinson, north and south there?
St. Luke's, the
It seems
preschool.
to me, I recall this body enacting that one way that had something to do with children getting picked up at that school, dropped off and picked up. It seems to me that's why that one way is there, for the safety of picking up and dropping off children associated with the school. Quite a,
But that,
2, 3, 4 years ago.
well, I was about to say, these particular streets, Northwest 16th Street between Robinson and Broadway, and then 16th Street from, I'm sorry, then Robinson from 16th Street south to 13th Street has been a one-way street for a very long time, since longer than I've been work for the city.
I stand corrected then, but there's something vague in my mind about this location.
Okay. No one else needing to speak on it? Hold on a second. Okay. All right, and we've had staff input. Do we have a motion concerning item 5C?
Mr. Chairman, in spite of the fact that the MUTCD, we don't have any warrants to justify, I would like to discuss this some more. Could I make a motion that it be approved so we can discuss it for discussion purposes?
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Cornett. Mr. Schuline?
I really do agree with Ms. Morrow that, I mean, the intersection does need some help. I mean, because that hill at 15th Street is significant when people are speeding coming northbound on Broadway. I know, Commissioner Cornett, we've discussed this, the problems with Broadway Avenue and the speeding, and so it does exacerbate this problem. So for that purpose alone, I'd like us to come up with some kind of some marking, something to identify that intersection is coming up on Broadway and that people need to be aware, because it's tough for people to get across there, even though there's a low number right now, but it would be more, I'm sure, if the intersection was protected.
Mr. Chairman, just a clarification though, the motion, you're wanting, what the motion is to install a traffic signal there. That's what the motion is. We prove that, then a traffic signal goes in. That's not what you're saying, right? Are you saying, that you're, yeah.
Yeah, he just made the motion so we could talk, and then we could adjust the motion as necessary. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So where I was going was, if the intersection is already ADA compliant, then all we could do is mark some crosswalk markings and post signs.
Yeah, I think where we lose any kind of effectiveness is because of that hill and because of the speed. So you have crosswalks that people aren't seeing because they're coming up over that hill, and then people trust that they're in a crosswalk, they're safe, and it's not working. And so then it becomes more of a problem, I would think.
Yes, sir.
It sounds like this would be more of an enforcement situation. If people are speeding, then we have the officers that can take action. And we've discussed more than once as a commission that no matter what sign you put up, if the road feels a certain speed limit, that's what people are going to drive. So it sounds like to help the problem, more enforcement's needed on Broadway as opposed to a lot more lighted intersections.
So 16th Street is kind of it's a connector for bike traffic, east-west connector. It connects on the west side to Will Rogers Trail and on the east side to Katy Trail. And 16th Street does go through, as long as there's not a train stopped there, it does connect on 16th Street to the Capitol complex as well. So taking bike traffic from, basically it's like the only way to get people from the core of the city over to the Capitol complex if they choose to walk or use bike traffic. So to me, it does make a lot of sense without forcing someone to go to 13th, which is a much busier street, or forcing somebody to go up to 23rd, which is a much, much busier street, to get over to access that area.
Well, then we could do crosswalk signaling like we did on 23rd, I believe it was.
It's like a mid-block cross,
Like
is
a
that what
mid-
you're
but-
looking at?
Well, yeah, just have it marked and then have some light, then push a button, red light comes on, people can cross, gives them time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the signal light problem
full stop.
of one car that comes up and holds 40 cards just for the one car.
Postage, yeah. What is, Stuart, what is your department's, I guess, when would you rather have a mid-block cross versus a full traffic signal? What do you guys think about that?
Well, typically, if we were going to look at putting in a mid-block pedestrian crossing, we would be looking at whether or not there's a pedestrian demand for it. I mean, right now, at this point in time, when we went out there and counted, did 4 hours worth of observation, during the morning peak traffic period and 2 in the afternoon, we had a total of 10 pedestrians going through. But and there's different ways you can look at that. We'll say, well, there are only 10 pedestrians going through because there's no facility to get them across the road. But by the same token, there may only just be 10 pedestrians going through there because there may not be anything that's a real pedestrian generator or destination in this area. I mean, as you wander further to the east on 16th Street, you wind up going into like an industrial commercial area on the east side. And on the west side, you're basically, it's a connection to the neighborhood in Heritage Hills. If there was a location potentially that might need some sort of, that might merit some form of pedestrian crossing help in the form of like a mid-block crossing, we would have to go out and basically look at a larger area as opposed to just, the area of request that we've got before you today, which is just at 16th Street. And it would be an unusual thing to install a signal at that location too, because currently it stands at 16th Street. When you're on the west side of Broadway, it's just a one-way westbound road into the neighborhood. I mean, to change that to a two-way road would involve restructuring the intersection at Northwest 16th Street and Robinson, but that also starts making traffic flow changes within the Heritage Hills neighborhood. And making a change like that without neighborhood involvement is probably something that the city would not want to do without considerable amount of input from residents there. Because I'm sure these things are probably set up to minimize the amount of traffic entering the neighborhood that maybe is not supposed to be there, or that should find a different route. Because as you go further north on Broadway, you'll see that there are a bunch of streets that are set up for like egress only. They're not set up for entry. So I mean, and those changes were put in to try and minimize the amount of what some people commonly refer to as like cut-through traffic through those areas. So that's one of the things you probably have to consider in doing this. But I mean, it's always possible to look at doing something like that. I know there was discussion about the view obstruction on that caused by that one hill. But based on the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, that requires a decision sight distance of like 385 feet, and we've got more than the required amount of decision sight distance based on our posted speed limit. And I know that there is a pending application that the Commission will be considering for a speed limit change on Broadway, taking it from its currently posted 35 to 30, and this would be running from 13th Street to 23rd Street. The reason why Broadway is currently 35 is in 2018 there was an application made on behalf of residents in the Heritage Hills area, and that was to get speed limit changes on Robinson, Broadway, and Chartel. And on Robinson and Chartel, it was to reduce the speeds, and on Broadway, it was to increase it from 30 to 35 in an effort to make that particular corridor a little bit more attractive to people to use as opposed to maybe traveling through the neighborhoods. So I mean, it's not so much that you can do something and just address one particular issue. It's more of a case of cause and effect, and then other follow-on effects from that. So, no easy answers.
So, some options is the signal light, first of all. Another one is a marked crossing, walkers are going across, and it would stop traffic, and they could cross. Another one would be just mark it as a crossing and then have some signage that just says, hey, watch out around here, with a caution of 30 or something. Not that anybody really listens to those caution 30 signs, but, so there are some options to help this area out. And of course, Captain, you'll have some people go out there and look and let us know how that comes. So we'll have some help out there. So those are some options that are out there. But the motion on the table right now is for a signal light. All the other things can be done without us, I believe. Am I right, sir? I mean, if...
Yes. Anything in the realm of being warning or advisory signs or marking, if we've got an accessible pedestrian way, we can mark crosswalks or things to that effect. But those things may, there's a lot of interest in doing things like that because with the intent of it affecting driver speed on like Broadway. But as you go further south on Broadway, you get into the areas where we've got the heavily textured pavement intersections at like 10th, 9th, and 8th and those things. Those things were also designed to help reduce traffic speeds. But as far as being a traffic calming measure, even though the surface is rough, they don't typically have a lot of influence on travel speeds.
This would be a good intersection if the intersection's not built ADA compliant. And you said sidewalks is a concern right in that area right there. That could be a good opportunity for, say, Public Works to coordinate a redo of that intersection to make it ADA compliant, run the sidewalks, and mark it. And if Public Works did something like that, that doesn't require anything from us. And with some signage that says, watch out. That could be a solution to just say, watch out in this area. And yet it doesn't affect the traffic on Broadway for just a small amount of people on 16th. So we could press on. Do you still want to keep your motion? Oh, we have somebody who wants to talk. Sure.
And one of the things that I have started to give more thought to when it comes to traffic signals with the bicycle element is the fairly recent state law where bicyclists, all they're required to do at a signalized intersection is yield. If it's red and they feel comfortable going, they can run right through that light. So I'm not saying that that's a determination of yes or no on this, but that's something to consider. What is a traffic signal? How would a traffic signal benefit bicyclists when they have the opportunity to yield to a red light and go if they feel it's safe? The conversation about pedestrian solutions, I'm in total agreement with.
Did not come on? All right, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chai and I had that discussion after the meeting last week, and we reviewed the state statute on that issue. And the state statute provides the permission, and that state statute overrides the city's authority as it grants permission for the bicyclists to ride through after checking for safety and yielding through red lights in that area. And he inquired as to whether or not the city should adopt an ordinance mimicking the state statute. My initial discussion with my co-counsels was that since they already had permission under state law, what would be accomplished by the city ordinance other than bringing us into potential issues where someone may have had an accident and they would hold the city responsible for not having managed traffic in addition to what is authorized by state law. And so there didn't seem to be a value and didn't seem like we would be issuing, not to speak for the captain, citations for people who may fail to yield and then go through the red light, because it would not likely be something that the police department would witness at the time, and it would be addressed. It could be addressed other ways. So the state statute's there. if the Traffic Commission would like to request that the city adopt a ordinance which mimics state law, which already authorizes that activity, we would be happy to draft that. I'm not sure that it accomplishes anything different.
Well, my read on that when it came out was I pull up on a red light and I'm on a bike and I don't activate any sensors, and I look right and there's nothing coming and the light's not changing, I'm allowed to go ahead and go through the red light. I mean, that was my read of what came out for that law.
That is correct. That is the way that is one fact scenario for use of that authorization.
Yeah, not, I see a red light, I roll up and I'm like, well, I think it's okay. And then I go and I get hit or something and then I blame everybody else.
So the typical challenge for the city, and I will not speak for the police department, but I'm sure it's the same, is everybody had the green light. All right? Nobody went through, everybody yielded, but somehow someone got hit, whether it be two vehicles or a vehicle and a bicycle or two bicycles.
All right, very good update on that.
Right, and I think I need to add one other thing. In that new state law, which went into effect the beginning of November, it was based on House Bill 1770. It also allows persons riding bicycles to treat basically a stop sign as a yield. So as they approach the intersection, if there is no need to stop because there's no activity on the cross street, they could just go straight through it. So it's a two-part thing. So one that allows a person on a bicycle to treat a stop sign like a yield, and it forces a person on a bicycle to stop at a red light. But if afterwards the roadway conditions are clear for them to make a safe crossing, then they can proceed through and do that. So it's kind of a two-part state law.
Okay. All right. So we have our motion, and so I need to ask, does the motion stand? The second stands?
Yes, I have a quick question.
Okay.
Bike traffic, it's also illegal for, I don't know if illegal is a correct word, but for them to go against a one-way, correct?
That's correct,
So they can't
yes.
even use 16th Street as it is coming out of Heritage Hills to Broadway?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
It's kind of an unusual location for a bicycle route to be, a two-way bicycle route to be on a street that's two-way on one side of the road and one-way on the
Yeah,
other.
well, because I think, like I said, 16th Street carries a Shero all the way through, except for this one block, which is really screwy, right? Okay, yeah.
I've got it. So are we saying that this basically, putting that light in would be basically for pedestrians only? It would do bicyclists going east no good at all, because there is no east traffic. So this basically would be for 10 pedestrians.
Well,
And westbound bicycle.
and Mr. Chairman, I'd like to emphasize too, the road users here, the difference in the volumes of traffic on the two different, it's unbelievable that you would even think of putting a traffic signal at this location. I mean, there's other things you can do with pedestrian crossing, advanced warning signs, but don't subject the road user to that. This is be a big injustice, in my opinion.
Okay, there you go. So the motion stands. All right, so we have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Cornett. Okay, can I have your votes, please? Okay, the item has failed. 7 not in favor and 2 in favor. Okay, so then we defer on over to the staff to work with Public Works and see what you can maybe come up with to help out in that area.
Yeah, and Ms. Burrow, if you'd like to contact our office and we can talk about other potential opportunities or things like that, we're happy to do that with you.
Sounds good.
Okay, all right. We go on now to item 5D, Caleb Morgan, PE, PTOE, Johnson & Associates, reserve parking space for the physically disabled on the east side of Northwestern Avenue from approximately 55 feet north to approximately 44 feet north of the north curb line of Northwest 10th Street. Sir? A name, address, you have up to 5 minutes.
Caleb Morgan, Johnson Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. This is a proposed development that will include multi-uses, including multifamily housing, and we're putting parallel parking around it, and this request is for ADA parking on one street of it. We work with staff on this. We appreciate their input, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
All right, staff, please.
All right, you've got our comments before you. This is all part of a redevelopment for the block that's bounded by 10th Street on the south, Park Place on the north, Western Avenue on the west, and Classen Boulevard on the east. As a result of the changes being made, inset parallel parking is being proposed along the east side of Western Avenue between 10th and Park in order to meet ADA requirements based on the number of structured parking spaces. This item is being presented to include one of those spaces to meet that requirement. With it being a parallel parking space, it should be, it's located close to the corner. It'd be a perfectly acceptable use for that particular location. And just to note, the applicant at this point in time has not requested any regulatory controls for the other spaces along Western Avenue. That's also something that could be considered someday in the future, but it's not required at this point in time consideration. So happy to answer any questions you might have on the application.
Okay, can I have a motion concerning item 5D?
Yes, sir. I move to approve the application.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Russell. Do we have any discussion on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve 5D from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Russell. Can we have your votes, please? Okay, the item has passed with all 9 in favor. We go on now to item 5E, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President, Johnson Associates, Inc., to consider a full-time passenger loading zone on the north side of North Harrison Avenue from approximately 137 feet east to 309 feet east of the east curb line of the northbound Interstate Highway 235, the I-235 off-ramp. Sir? You already gave us your information, so please.
Thank you. This is a multi-use development, including office, multi-story hotel, and a parking garage below. And this is for a drop-off lane, and then the next item as well is for the valet, so it's the same project. The property owner is well aware they're going to have to dedicate some easement for the use of pedestrian access on the north side of the drop-off lane, and they're doing a nice plaza and park on that side, so everything will be accessible to the local public there. We appreciate staff working with us on this item, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wanting to speak on 5E? All right, staff?
All right, as Mr. Morgan indicated, this is a proposed passenger loading lay-by that's being constructed as part of a new development. It will be separated from Harrison Avenue by a median. The proposed lay-by is going to be in an area that's currently occupied by Stiles Avenue and Stiles Circle. Both of those, as noted in our staff report, have been approved to be vacated through the Planning Commission and City Council. So at this point in time, it's a perfect ancillary use for this particular location. Happy to answer any questions you might have relative to the application.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5E?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Miller. We have a second from Commissioner George. Do we have any talk on item 5E? Okay, motion to approve 5E from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner George. Votes, please. Okay, the item has passed with all 9 in favor. We go on now to item 5F, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., Johnson Associates, valet loading zone within the passenger loading zone on the north side of North Harrison Avenue from approximately 137 feet east to 309 feet east of the east curb line of the northbound Interstate Highway 235, I-235 off-ramp. Is there anything extra on this item that you'd like to talk about? Okay, staff?
All right, this is a companion item to the passenger loading zone that you had just heard. Typically, This is a common use in full-time passenger loading zones, which is to use it for a valet purpose, so action on the item will be at the discretion of the commission.
Do we have a motion for 5F?
I move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a second?
A second?
Okay, so Commissioner Miller approved 5F, seconded by Commissioner George. Do we have any discussion on this item? Okay, motion to approve 5F from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner George. Can we have your votes?
Yes. I vote, there it is. Came up.
Okay, 5F is approved, it's passed with all 9 in favor. We go on now to item 5G, Caleb Morgan, PE, PTOE, Johnson & Associates, to consider 2 items. 1, 90-degree angle parking in a setback parking area on the east side of South Laird Avenue from approximately 55 feet north to approximately 230 feet north of the north curb line of Southeast 5th Street. And 2, 7 reserved parking spaces for the physically disabled on the east side of South Laird Avenue from approximately 55 feet north to approximately 180 feet north of the north curb line of Southeast 5th Street. So do you have anything on this item? We already have your information.
Thank you. This is a development for a dog park with a bar in it. And the parking on the east side, or excuse me, the west side of Laird is also part of the development. So this project's bounded on the north by the river, and then I-40 to the north, and then the Whitewater Park to the south. So this is really the only thing in the area on that street. We appreciate staff working with us on this one, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay. Staff, do you have input?
Got nothing else to add on this particular request. I just want to make it known to the commission that we are in the process of getting ready to bring back in the first part of next year angle parking standards. So at that point in time, we'll have more things to talk about. But at this point in time, like Mr. Morgan noted, this is an area that's a one block long stretch of Laird Avenue that is going to be constructed in part in conjunction with a proposed development. So action on the items at the discretion of the commission.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5G?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Miller. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Commissioner George. Any discussion on the item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5G from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner George. And ready votes, please. Item has passed, all 9 in favor. Thank you for your help, sir. Okay, we go to item 6, comments from citizens. Anybody out there want to talk? All right, item 7, reports and other items, traffic commissioners, et cetera. So we'll go ahead and go around. Commissioner Varnell.
None for me. Merry Christmas.
Very good. Commissioner Littlefield.
Yes, for about the past almost hour, I have really enjoyed being Ward 2's only unauthorized yet fully funded traffic light.
Oh, but you ran out of power.
Merry Christmas.
Go over to Commissioner Russell.
Nothing after that.
Commissioner Hale.
Nothing, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Nothing to report, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller.
Nothing, sir.
Very good. Commissioner George.
Oh, nothing from me.
Commissioner Cornett.
Everybody happy holidays.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, happy holidays. Commissioner Cornett.
Hi.
Oh, here we go. Everybody.
Got a live one. No, I was just wondering, we came up in conversation with some friends the other day about lowering the speed limits downtown, but also having a flashing red light for all the stoplights between like 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. And so you don't have to stop for no reason at all whenever there's not a car anywhere close. And it would also prioritize pedestrians because they would be able to cross at any given stop sign. I have no idea what it takes to get us there, but I just wanted to start the conversation and find out if your team can do a little bit of research, come back with recommendations on what either one of those would look like. I know that Edmund recently in their downtown past the 20 mile per hour zone throughout their downtown, and didn't know if that would be potential for our CBD, but also those flashing lights.
Okay. With
Not to put you on the spot.
internally, we've had discussions in Public Works about making, about standardizing speed limits in the downtown core area. And one of the things that's been thought about on and off is about switching to like a single speed limit, like 25. There are sections of Oklahoma City Boulevard through downtown that are 25. There are a few others, but there are also a lot of corridors that run at 30. And I mean, when you stop and think about it, 30 is not an unreasonable speed. I mean, in some communities, 30 is the standard speed for residential. So that's, I mean, if there's interest in sending us some more information to look at, we'd be happy to look at that for you. With respect to going to flashing lights, that can be looked at in a couple different ways, because there are some communities in the past that will like along a main arterial, they will after certain hours, they will flash their lights, except what usually happens, they will flash a yellow over top of the main thoroughfare and red on the cross streets. In Oklahoma City, whenever a signal is in flashing red, when people approach it, they presume that it's a flashing red all the way around, without thinking that it's going to be just a flashing yellow for a warning on the side street. Mm-hmm. So without the benefit of knowing what the other signals are showing, it could create some confusion. And a lot of times, those are typically used during really off-peak times. And for the most part, our signals in the downtown area, a lot of them operate without detection, so they have to run pre-timed patterns. But it would be something that we would have to look at pretty carefully. Yeah. But I mean, if you're interested in submitting something like that to be looked at, or if you had a corridor in mind, it's potential we could look at it. The one thing, like I said earlier, if we went to flashing operation, it might be like, we might have to go to like flashing operation on all approaches where it'd be flashing red, which meant that somebody traveling down a corridor, a main corridor, would stop at every intersection they came to, whether or not there was anyone on the minor cross street.
Sure. I'd be interested. So is there any way for us to just test it and see and get feedback, or even test to see if it affects accident reports or anything like that? I don't know. Is there like a 3-month testing period that we could go through just during those off-peak times, not on game days, not when there's something big at the Civic Center, or, like on days that it really is just quiet downtown?
We would have to look at that. I've never been asked the question, so I
Great.
can't really,
Happy to be
give you a good answer at the moment.
Okay, sounds good. I'll send you an email about
That would
it,
be
and we
fine.
can kind of get that process
That'd be perfect.
started. Great, thanks.
Okay. Captain, you got anything? No. Counselor?
Merry Christmas to all. I've enjoyed sitting with you all. I think that Haley will be back next meeting.
Very good. Staff?
I have no other comments to offer other than, you've got our standard report for administrative yields and stuff, and parking controls in front of you. I want to wish you all Merry Christmas and compliment you on your truly remarkable holiday attire.
Well, we have to thank Mary for that. Yeah. Well, the only thing I have is when we do adjourn, if everybody could just stay at their seats for a second, what we'll do is we'll stand up. The ladies up here will sit there, and we'll have a photo for everybody, right? Is that what we're doing? One of the things? And then we may meet up somewhere else for a little closer photo or something. Okay? So anybody else have any business for the Traffic Commission? Okay, we stand adjourned.